Good morning. A warm welcome to the Humanist Community in Silicon Valley Sunday Forum. My name is Alex Havasey. I'm a member of the Humanist Community. The Humanist Community is a chapter of the American Humanist Association. Humanism is a secular and reality-based philosophy of life that affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good. We value freedom, health, fairness, and using science and reason to acquire and apply knowledge. If these words describe your thinking, we invite you to become a member of the Humanist Community if you haven't done so already. Membership forms are available on our website. Now, today's talk. Few countries face polarization as deeply as America's. Democrats and Republicans used to disagree on policy issues, but today each side of this gap fears the other will destroy the nation if they can achieve power. Today, Carl will lead a discussion on how we might bridge the gaps between us and learn to see others as humans responding to experiences they have. Carl is the current treasurer and longtime member of the Humanist Community. He's spoken at several forums in the past. He characterizes himself as a member of the radical middle and wants us to learn how to break down the political and personal barriers to the current political divide. Carl consults on high-tech project development and holds an MBA from San Jose State University, an MSEE from the University of Southern California, and a BSEE from the Carnegie Mellon University. Carl?
Okay. Okay, let me get the slideshow started here. So let me give a little introduction to how I came to this. I actually started with a discussion we were having at the Ethical Culture Society. So that got me looking into this particular problem. Discussion was pretty much open-ended. And I didn't want to use that approach this morning. I thought I would do a different approach. And mainly because the humanists are much more thinkers, whereas they emphasize emotion and ethics in the Ethical Culture Society. So anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show a cartoon, and the cartoon says there's an old fellow looking at a TV. It's obviously late at night, and one of the ads is on. It says, "Act now. The first 50 callers receive a presidential pardon." And this is taken from the Atlantic. So and again, it's funny, and yet it might not be funny to some other people. But so anyhow, my agenda this morning is I'm going to give an introduction, and then I'll give a summary of some of the ideas about how to improve the polarization problem, and then we'll discuss specific solutions, and there'll be a wrap up and then a Q&A. And what my intention is that I'm going to go through 7 different ideas about how to improve polarization. And I'm going to focus this mostly in the area I have experienced in the humanists, because the humanists are thinkers. Let me get to the next slide here. So here's my introductory comments. And few countries face, this is taken from a reference from called Possible, How We Can Survive and Thrive in an Age of Conflict. It's it's a book, and it's by William Ury. And William was involved in things like settling the problems between the Irish and the English during the rebellion there, and also a bunch of other countries around the world. So but he's not necessarily dealing with this. So he says, anyway, Democrats and Republicans used to disagree on policy issues. That's the normal, useful tension that drives democracy. Today, each side fears and the other side will destroy the nation if they achieve power. Partisanship becomes equated with patriotism, and I don't know if we call it patriotism on the left side, and destroying the other side becomes the ultimate goal. Destroying the other side becomes the ultimate goal. This is how democracies fall apart. So it's something we need to think about. So my general comments in introducing this thing is because I've been listening and reading a lot of books, and in fact, our group has read several books in this area. And so what I have here is a slide that says general concepts of pitfalls of all human beings. That includes progressives and conservatives. Progressives being thinkers, they actually believe that they're right. So that's next concept. Everyone has a need to be right. They spent a bunch of time coming to their beliefs about the world, and they believe that they are right. They're not only right, they're absolutely right. So it's moving them off that setting is very, very difficult. So in our book reading group, we read two prominent books in this area. One is called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's by Daniel Kahneman, and Kahneman is a professor at Stanford University. And then there's another one that's closely aligned to this. We read a book by Jonathan Haidt, which emphasizes the concept of the elephant and the rider. Let me describe them again. What the hell is going on here? Just a second, I'm gonna floating moving controls went away. So in the idea of thinking in fast and slow, he actually makes in laboratory measurements about how the brain works. And the emotional side of the brain clicks on about 200 milliseconds after it gets an input. That's pretty fast. And what you have is first an emotional reaction, and then we have the possibility of having a non-emotional reaction. But most of the time, it's emotional. So this Jonathan Haidt put together the idea of the elephant and the rider. The elephant is the irrational, non-thinking, feeling part of the mind. And it's a big elephant. And the rider is the person who is the human being who's riding the elephant. And what they believe is, especially intellectuals, they believe that they are in the rider position all the time, when in actuality, the elephant goes any damn well place it pleases. It's big and it moves around, and it's very difficult for the rider to gain control over the elephant. They may believe they have control over it, but the evidence is to the contrary. The other thing that I found in many cases, and I find this in all kinds of media and many times in the world generally, among all human beings again, many times people confuse feelings with thoughts. They'll say something like, I feel, and then they'll put out a thought. Feelings are sad, bad, glad, confused, whatever, but they have nothing to do with a thought. And learning to discriminate between feelings and thoughts is part of the problem. We don't know when we're feeling and then spouting something, spreading something out. So here we go. Next. Oh, somebody say something? Oh, why is my slideshow not working? Okay. So some of the, let me go back up here again one more, make sure yeah, okay. I'll make sure I'm on the right slide. So a summary of the methodologies that are used in order to break down this polarization involves this stuff comes from, by the way, I have this, and I'll put it in the, I'll put these references in the chat later on. But so here are the 7 things that they said that causes people to not be able to overcome polarization. So the first one is call out your own group or political party. In other words, are you doing the same thing? Are you not listening? All these sorts of things. And I'm going to go into detail about each one of these. So avoid bad jokes. Make social media kinder. Downplay the fringes and highlight the median. That's very difficult to do. Emphasize disagreement within groups or parties. In other words, even inside parties or groups, there's different opinions, but we don't discriminate them. It's you're either A or B. That's how thinking goes. And the next thing is help imagine empathy. That is, how can you empathize with the person that you're the polar opposite of? And that's very hard. And even in families where breakdown in communications occur because someone says something on YouTube or on Facebook or whatever, they break down. They say, "I'm not going to talk to you," or they say, "No talk about politics, no talk about values at the dinner table at Thanksgiving." And so what they do is shut down, and they say, "We don't talk about it." Well, that doesn't unfortunately help. So avoid repeating misinformation, even to debunk it. That's an interesting concept as well. So I'm going to start, let me tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to talk about the concept, a little more detail about the concept, like point out your own group. But I've got a timer here, and we're going to spend 3 minutes on this conversation, because any of these conversations could go on for an hour, and I don't want to do that. So I've got a 3-minute timer, and I'm going to time things out for 3 minutes. And once I'm done with this, we'll stop and we'll discuss this up to 3 minutes. Because we're only going to allow 3 minutes, please watch your airtime. You make a comment, keep it short. It doesn't mean don't say anything, but keep it short. Some people have a hard time keeping track of how long they're talking. They'll talk for 3 minutes without blinking an eye. So if you do that, I will unfortunately break in, and I'll say, okay, I think you've gone too far. Let's have another person get a time, especially if there are people who have their hands up. As Alex said, you want to put your hand up. Someone's going to have to tell me whose hand's up, because I can't see the hands. So anyway, the first concept is point out your own group. So here's what they say. Humans are social creatures who want to belong and are highly attuned to popularity. We look to those with status in our group to tell us what it takes to be part of the group or party. Now, of course, humanists don't do this. What important people in the group say impacts what others in the group find as important or acceptable to belong to the group. So the last thing is speaking out for alternate opinions other than the group norms and gender shifting of the group norms. In other words, if somebody says, "Hey, we think you're speaking you're overgeneralizing too much, emphasizing some particular fact over another, and maybe not everyone agrees with that." That's what the problem. That's where the problem comes up. So what you want to do is you want to allow for alternate opinions in the group besides the group think part. In other words, I'll try to see if I can give an example. Are you for or against abortion? As if there's only two states, for or against abortion. This is not the only two states. There's a lot of graduation in between the left and the right. So let me open it up to conversation now. Does anybody have any comments about this? I'm going to start the timer for 3 minutes, because I want to be able to get through it and get to the end. I can't see any hands. Does anybody have their hands up? Can anybody see? Who is it? Can you stop sharing? Oh, can I stop sharing? Oh, I have to stop sharing. Oh, wow, that's good. Oh, okay. All right. All right, so it looks like Michael's got a comment. Okay, Michael, go for it.
First, I want to express my appreciation, Carl, for choosing this topic, because it's a very important issue indeed. And one quick comment that maybe when the question is expressed as a binary choice, that's already a red flag. So maybe you have to refuse to answer this question, because most issues are just not binary. They are more complex, more nuanced, and this is just the wrong question.
Okay. All right. I guess I missed a little bit of that, Michael. Can you say it again? I have to turn on
If you are asked the question like, are you for or against abortions, for instance?
Yes.
As a binary choice, you have to reject this question, because this is the wrong question.
Excellent idea.
It does not capture the complexity of this issue.
Okay, we only have 1 minute and 25 seconds left. Sandra?
So let's see. I can't see the points anymore, but one of them had to do with we are social animals and we want to be popular. So we're more likely to express a view we think that our group will agree with. But we don't, most of us spend all of our time in the same group. So.
Oh, shoot, she froze. Oh, it's too bad.
Depending on who we're with, when we're with a different group, we change to a different thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry you froze a little bit, Sandra.
Oh, yeah. So if it says we have to state what will make us popular, but we're not always with exactly the same group. So therefore we state different things depending on who we're with.
Well, don't we tend to cluster in groups with similar thoughts, though? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that humanists go to meetings of the Baptist Church in the South. I mean, yeah, I find that hard to believe.
Well, we run into people. For example, when somebody sees me handicapped on the street, they might come up and say, "I'm praying to Jesus for you." So I often lie and say, "Thank you," when I don't believe Jesus is
Okay.
going to help me. So don't we change our views depending on who we're talking to and in situations?
No, I think we can. We can certainly if we're open to
No,
listening to the other
I
person.
shouldn't say change our views. We don't change our views. We change what we say.
That's what we think. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on now. So let me go to the next one of these. If I can get it going here. Now what? Oh, share. Okay. Okay. So the next um, means of breaking down polar opposites is to avoid bad jokes. And it's really interesting. I wrote down a number of the folks that I like to listen to, the comedians, right? John Oliver, Jon Stewart, Bill Maher, um, Lewis Black. So I listen to them and I laugh at them. But unfortunately, I don't know that the person on the other side would laugh at these jokes. In fact, I suspect they would not. So they say, you might never, this is an interesting comment now, this is you might never dream of condoning partisan murder. That means let's kill the other guy. But you might still share a really funny meme that makes the point. Watch it. Jokes have a particularly strong effect on normalizing prejudice, far more than an overly prejudiced argument. Now think about that. Particularly dangerous are jokes that employ violent rhetoric or dehumanize by comparing people to animals or insects. We certainly have seen Trump do that, but it doesn't mean that the left persons don't do it too. A slew of research shows that dehumanizing language removes inhibitions to perpetuating violence or anger towards other groups, especially when the language cultivates pre-existing grievances and the speaker is respected by his or her group. So now I got to stop sharing. And does anybody have any comments about that particular approach to depolarizing? Don't tell bad jokes. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Sandra's got her hand up. Did you want to say something?
Okay.
That would go for sarcastic characterizations also.
Oh, okay. All right. Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know about a whole joke, but I think we think we're funny if we say Trump's an idiot. So I thought I was about to say that the other day, and I thought, well, actually, idiot has a very specific definition, and I really shouldn't insult idiots. I shouldn't use that term at all, but I think we often use terms that are questionable themselves when we think we're funny.
Yes, especially if it's in a sarcastic manner, which is what you going to say?
Yes. Yeah, that was the comment I made, that a, a good sarcastic remark is basically the same as a joke.
Pretty
It's
much so, yeah. Hey, it looks
strengthens
like,
your side.
whoa, it looks like Zim. Wow, that's your cell phone.
Yeah.
Zim? Oh, shoot, you're muted.
Indeed, I always am muted. I must say, Carl, I'm a bit appalled. I mean, you are proposing censorship. That's, to me, it's not acceptable. Now, you say that jokes propagate certain stereotypes. Actually, without the stereotype, the jokes wouldn't be funny. If I tell you a Polish joke, you will laugh because you have a certain preconception about Polish people. If you did not, the joke would not be funny. It would not be understood. So you're not really adding any value. And I'm sorry I missed the beginning of your talk. I think what I'm guessing you said is that we have to be open maybe to other people's perspectives on things, but those people have to be open to our perspectives. It's a two-way street. So, I mean, you know me, run my mouth and I sometimes say really, really stupid things. Okay. But I don't think generally I'm a bad person. I'm a person who has, logorrhea, maybe, you know. Um, I think tolerance is important, including tolerance of people saying, stuff that even if you find
Okay,
objectionable,
Zim, we're only allowing 3 minutes for each one of these. So let's let Michael get a comment
Okay.
in. I got your point.
Yeah, I actually had the same concern about censoring what people are saying. But my take on this that you have to try to avoid offending other people and also try to avoid to be so easily offended. But Carl's point actually focused on this first part of this, that try not to offend other people. If possible, express your thoughts in not offensive ways.
Yeah, and of
That's
course,
what it is about.
okay, let's let Sandra get the last word in, and we only got 5 seconds. So,
Oh, yeah. I think that Zem's entirely wrong about it's a two-way street. We can only decide our own behavior. We cannot make anybody else behave in a particular way. But hopefully, if we model something, it'll have some influence.
well, remember what the statement said. It said from what Zem said, it perpetuates. It means it's already there, and you're extending it, making it stronger. So, okay, let me. And by the way, let's hear from some other folks. If you someone else puts their hand up, I'll let them go first, no matter who got their hand up first. So let me. Okay, now let me go back to the slides here. If I can do that. Okay, here we go. Okay, slide number 3. Make social media kinder. This I don't know. I've never experimented with this. I don't use social media very much, so but you could call our our group conversations, as it is. It's a media, it's a media where people can talk to each other, and I'm not sure that we know how to make it kinder. So, but let me go back to the somewhere or another. I got off to share here. So let me read the. You may not be able to alter someone's deeper beliefs, but there are 3 ways regular people on social media can get others to remove hateful messages, reduce the spread of hateful memes, and curb prejudiced or polarizing speech. Secondly, is learn to diffuse hateful speech. So here's methods, right? First, reminding persons doing postings that online speech has real world offline consequences, both for the writer and for the person or the group. Second thing, making a personal or empathetic connection with the speaker can have the same effect. Finally, humorous words or images that make fun of the original idea can also diffuse the spread of hateful speech. Now let's see what he's saying here. You make a joke about what someone on your side said. Am I making sense? Because you're trying to break the pattern in the group. So let me go back to stop sharing again. And does anybody have any? I'm going to start my 3-minute timer. Does anybody have any comments about that? Tom is a local in the room here.
Yes, I'm on Facebook quite a bit. And what I find is that the large majority of people that post on social media have extreme points of view. It's the people that are on the political extremes that are more highly motivated. And I am a motivated moderate, and I see it as my responsibility as a citizen to try to counter the extremes I see on Facebook. And so I post quite frequently, and I find that even the extreme people there's the better angels of their nature can be appealed to if you remind them that let's talk about ideas, let's leave the name calling out. And so when I post something, an idea, which I frequently do, I say, I welcome thoughtful, respectful responses. And then when people respond, if they're not thoughtful and they're not respectful, I remind them and I say, this is not
Okay.
helping.
Let's give someone else a chance. Does anybody else have a comment, especially someone who hasn't commented before? Got a few new folks here. That's Rudy. Is that it, Rudy? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm a pretty nice guy most of the time, and one thing I've learned is sometimes people will bully me, or treat me in a way that's not helpful unless I get good and mad. For instance, I run an exercise class and the equipment wouldn't work. And one lady just kept on saying, well, it worked yesterday. And it's as if she believed I was doing something wrong. When I finally got mad and said, I'm doing the best I can. She got up and walked out. Then she came back about 15 minutes later to see if I got it working yet. And then the other thing, I'm 3 years short of 90, but I've been exercising aerobics all my life. I can do generally over 40 push-ups, and people try to help me out of the car. And
Okay, Rudy,
okay, I'll leave it
I
there.
think we got your point. Anybody else have any quick comments? We only have less than a quarter of a minute left.
Really
Okay.
quick, I think you will have meanness on social media for as long as it remains anonymous. People
Yeah.
are mean, and when given the chance, they will be mean to others, especially if they will not face consequences or repercussions.
Yeah, certainly that's true. It is it's added, it's enhanced the situation, unfortunately. I agree with that. Okay, so let's go to the fourth one here. Now here's the radical middle thing, right? Downplay the fringes and highlight the median. Americans are more polarized emotionally than ideologically. We actually disagree on policy far less than people think. But think about that. Stunningly, a majority of Americans agree on broad strokes of abortion, immigration, and gun legislation. Because partisans tend to have distorted views of who comprises the other party and how many people believe stereotypical views attributed to that party, providing real information that overturns these beliefs I notice I said can, reduce polarization. Problem is, this is the intellectuals trap. They believe that putting information will change people's minds. Very frequently, it only makes them madder. So I'll switch back to stop sharing here, if I can do it. There we go. Anybody have any comments about that particular idea? Michael?
Yeah, so as you could expect from me, I have a comment about this. And it's not only from my experience with Braver Angels and other similar discussions, but for instance, there is a website, Common Ground, that documented more than 200 policy ideas or solutions that are supported by both Democrats and Republicans. And many of them are supported by large majorities, like 80-90% of both parties. So yes, it's just, I want to confirm what you just said.
Okay, and so I agree with you. I'll comment after the other folks comment. So is it Dana? Who is it?
Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I hear a bias in this conversation. People are generally assuming there are two parties. There are more than two parties.
Another story. Good point.
I'm done.
Okay, Rudy had his hand up again, I see.
Something that works for me, when somebody disagrees with me, I find myself quit listening. And so if I force myself to listen to all the details and start asking questions, they get less hostile because they I'm guessing they just feel put off if I'm not listening.
Yes, that's a good point. And it's valid. Sandra's got her hand up. We got another minute left.
Yeah. Anytime I hear that most Americans, such and such, especially if it has to do with politics, but maybe anything, I think that's not true. I think it's a reverse bell curve kind of thing where people who are on one end of the spectrum feel strongly about it and the other end of the spectrum. But those in the middle, they don't care one way or the other. They don't think about it. They don't pay any attention to it. So maybe that's in politics what they say. These are the independents, but really, they're not even independent. They just don't care.
Okay, well, we're going to get to empathy, which is closer to what most of you folks are talking about, being empathetic with the other human being. Okay, let me go back to, we got 16 seconds. Has anybody else got any quick comments? Has to be fast. Okay, I'll go to the next section. Whoops, share. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Let's go to the next one here. Page down. Where is it? Page down. Okay, what's going on here? Okay. Emphasize disagreement within groups. Now, this is an interesting one that basically what this particular one says, reminding people that different group members have a range of opinions can dial back polarization. That means in the same group, people have different ideas because we tend to think that the whole group has the same ideas. Immigration policy can be framed as left versus right or as a complex issue that pits some right-wing business owners against others, some left-wing unions against more progressive activists, established immigrants against newer arrivals, and so on. And then he quotes something. The Difficult Conversations Lab at Columbia University found that when people read nuanced articles on policy issues that underscore this kind of intra-party disagreement, the conversations with people from the other point of view were of higher quality. So here what you say is, hey, everybody in this group does not believe that abortion is an absolute right that should extend all the way up to birth. Now, whereas there are other people who say, as an example, in Europe, I understand everything is fine up to 16 weeks, which is, I heard Trump mumble about that a few months ago. And then after that, they're looked at more closely and says, except for the life of the mother or rape or incest. So, but nonetheless, you would think that the whole world believed, as many American progressives believe, it's between the doctor and the person that's giving birth. And that's not true. Society's always poked around in there. Anyway, I will stop now and start the timer. And I gotta get some of this stuff out of the way here. Okay, does anybody have any comments about that particular issue?
Yeah, just want to say
Let's
something.
remember, you're emphasizing that within each group, there's a range of beliefs on different ideas.
Yeah, I want to comment also
Okay.
that we talked earlier, you brought up a subject earlier about really listening to people. And I find if you actually listen to someone's argument, you'll find at the center there's a real valid concern. and it's that valid concern you've got to find and address, and you might be wrong. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments on this subject? In other words, what you do is you're in a group and someone is expressing a contrary, someone is expressing a very strong point of view. Are you willing to say, hey, people think, not everybody in this group thinks that. And it may or may not be true because it would depend upon the group you're in. Sandra?
The example you gave, some people believe you should have abortion right up to birth. Well, I don't think that's accurately representing anybody's thinking. But if it is, then that's pretty sloppy thinking, because if a baby's born, it's no longer abortion. Abortion has a specific meaning. And so the more sloppily we use words, the more we are likely to disagree, because we're not even talking about the same thing.
How about 25 seconds before birth? That's what I'm saying. No, again,
That's not an abortion.
I'm a person who looks at corner cases all the time. That's a corner case. Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, can I say just something about that? And you mentioned it was a 16-week thing in Europe, and it's nice to have rules, and the rules are kind of what you adhere to unless there are extenuating circumstances. And extenuating circumstances could come up conceivably to the day of birth. Yeah, I don't know what they are, but I'll suspend judgment on it for now.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments about this particular idea here? Again, you're in a group, an extreme idea has been expressed, and you say, I don't believe, you might say, I don't believe that, or you might say, gee, I've heard the other day that somebody else said this, so that you move it off the end point. You're not talking about
Thanks.
I'm sorry, somebody said something, but is that Helen? Oops. Wow, 3 minutes went by fast. It does go by fast, doesn't it? Nobody else has any comments? I'm going to go to the next idea. I thought that one would have more talking. Who is that? Oh, Helen, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
It sounds like
you're all muffled. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the slides now. I'm going to kill some stuff here. Okay, so help others imagine empathy. Helping people to imagine a disliked group in an empathetic way can reduce malicious beliefs about that group. Thus, stories encouraging people to take the perspective of or empathize with the other group or party can reduce prejudice. So you're in a group and someone makes a comment and you say, well, what if you were whatever? What if you were a coal miner? I think I mentioned this to you earlier. What if you're a coal miner and you got laid off and the Democratic Party didn't do too much about that for a long, long time? And you're pissed off at you. Why could you empathize with that? Of course I can. I don't know if others can or not, but I can understand why they'd vote for someone, no matter how quirky they might be. Anyway, research in Europe and America on immigration found that even stories that linked immigrants to cultural issues, such as cooking, rather than border crossing, decreased negative attitudes, while stories that linked immigrants to crime were polarizing. So it's just an example. Let me see if I can stop share. Okay, anybody have any comments about that idea? Okay, looks like Michael does. Go ahead, Michael.
Come on.
So empathy, it's not just an intellectual thing. It's emotional. You have to know other people. You have to have some kind of personal connection to them. You have to hear from them, to learn about their experience in order to develop empathy. And this is what is important, to have this as many interactions between people belonging that maybe not even have a chance to meet in real life, but can do it through, say, Braver Angels or some other organizations. That's what we need to develop empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess it's Jerry, huh?
Yeah, I just wanted to recommend the book Nonviolent Communication. There's some amazing stories about managing it in a getting along with people in very, very difficult situations. I highly recommend it.
Okay, why don't you put it in the chat?
I don't know how to. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can put it in. Oh, maybe I'll try. I don't know if I can. I'll try.
Well, it's about time you learn. Been in this group a long time. Okay, Sandra.
And I think people have a difficult time with this empathy. For example, with immigration, I frequently hear people say, even people who are, I would consider more progressive, that, well, those aren't real refugees. They're economic refugees. And yet, what was the last election about? It was about people's economic situation and how they were suffering because their groceries cost more or something. But they don't empathize with people who have no groceries at all. I'm finished.
Okay. Looks like, oh God, I've forgotten your name. I can't believe it. Jim. Yeah, Jim Naylor. Jim?
Yeah, I find it very difficult to have empathy with people who won't accept facts, that once they get an idea in their head, they cannot be moved with facts or obvious fallacies in their thinking. That's my point.
Yeah, and I believe you probably have an emotional reaction to that. So
I
one
do,
would have to overcome that
especially
reaction.
I have problems with my relatives in this respect.
Yes, and many people do. And so that would require you to stop, check your feelings, then open yourself up. But anyway, we can talk about that in a longer part of the conversation. Okay, we're getting through these, fortunately. Then we can open the whole conversation up to wherever it will go, assuming we stay on this topic. Okay, here we go. Okay. Man, I can't believe this. Sometimes this. What the hell? Oh, there we go. Man, sometimes these programs work really goofily. I'm using the free LibreOffice. Avoid repeating misinformation even to debunk it. So repetition leads our brains to think things are true, regardless of the accuracy of the information being repeated. This tendency is even stronger when people want to believe a piece of false information because our brains seek out information we want to hear. I mean, we've all seen this, I think. It's easier to see on the people that are conservative than from the people that are progressive. So if people read that Obama is not a Muslim, it's a very interesting comment. Many will remember Obama is a Muslim, maybe. The best way to avoid deepening misinformation is to simply state the alternative information. Obama is a Christian, and so as in order to avoid this business of repeating information. And of course, I've heard misinformation, and of course, the general tendency of the intellectuals that I know want to debunk it, and that doesn't work, unfortunately. At the human level, it doesn't work. Okay. Anybody have any comments about that one? We're getting close to the end now. Jim?
I've sent quotations from Trump's lips himself to members of my family and hope that these negative comments will stay impressed in their mind rather than just quoting or pointing out that he's very disruptive.
Yeah, again, it's much easier to see this from the other side. It's from you say, they say debunkable information. Do progressives ever say debunkable information? That's the question, right? And if we can't see that, then we're blind to it. Therefore, the other people see it very strongly. Doesn't change your minds at all. Okay, Jerry, I guess you're up again. Jerry? Oh.
Yeah. So when you make a statement like Obama is a Muslim or not a Muslim, that's either true or false. But if somebody says they believe in God or they believe God is real or not, I sometimes will say, well, define God. No, if they ask me, is God real or not, I'll ask them, define God. And then because it depends upon the definition, I'll say yes or no.
Yeah, I guess that's true. There's a certain element of that. The question is, it might not be beneficial to the conversation for you to do that. That's what we can talk about later. Michael?
I can empathize with Tim's feelings about that when people reject facts, reject evidence, despite of evidence. I also feel annoyed about this. But the thing is that when we are talking about really complex issues, like social issues, political issues, even statistical evidence is open to different interpretations. And so sometimes what we consider as undeniable facts, it's not as much as black and white as we think. So something to remember.
Yeah, it's a good point. Things are rarely black and white. What our beliefs about them might be. Even about murder or other things like that. Sometimes people believe murder is okay. Other people say it should never happen, ever. So let me go to the next. We used up our 3 minutes, and let's go to share again. And I do believe that was the last one. So let me, yeah, that was number 7. So let me get rid of some of this junk here. So go to the next one. Wow. In summary, so this is just a summary I read from somebody else. Again, I stole a lot of this material from other sources. Many hoped the coronavirus pandemic would unite us. Instead, deep divisions over race and the role of government are intensifying and might even lead to political or other violence. Today's polarization isn't just about believing the other side is wrong. Partisans now see the opposition group members as malevolent, immoral forces. We can do something to reverse this tendency. At least that's my opinion. And I believe the next slide should kick us to. So anyway, I'm going to open it up now to whatever general comments folks want to do. So let me shut down the stop share. Okay, so does anybody have any comments about any of these ideas? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's very important not to personalize any insults or anything when you're talking to someone with a different view, because they'll just shut you off right then, just like you would if someone with an opposite view is saying you're an idiot or dismiss without evidence whatever you're saying because they believe it's the other way. And don't say your view or anything don't tell them you're attacking their view or anything that would make it even remotely a personal attack.
Okay. I guess, well, wait, we got two others ahead of you, so. Jerry? You're muted, huh? You're still muted. I don't know what you're doing. Okay.
My iPad, the Zoom is different than it used to be. Still learning the difference. Yeah, so some people are so polarized it really is impossible. I mean, I've had conversations with climate deniers. Well, they don't like the word, but climate deniers, where they think they have all kinds of evidence, but they don't know the whole story. They have it's like flat earthers. There's some people you just can't talk to, really.
Well, I'm going to break in here. I'm just going to crosstalk with you a little bit. Have you actually found out why it is that they strongly believe at an emotional level that what you're saying is incorrect? Very often people don't believe in authorities today, for example. You don't believe in some authorities too. I can assure you that's true. So the question is, how do you break down that situation?
Well, I have a hypothesis, which is that I found out that most of the time they are climate deniers. They're also libertarian, and the problem is that as far as any, the general idea is that if you're going to fix climate change, it requires government. Libertarians don't like government, so if they accept climate change, they'll have to accept government, and they won't do that. It's an identity problem for them. That's my hypothesis, and I think it is true for a number of people. I don't think it's true for all of them. But I have a friend who sent me like 20 emails on why climate change is not real, and I took each of them seriously. I mean, it used to be I was hoping they were right, and I really hoped for a long time, but the evidence they gave was not good.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that the opposite climate deniers really they're mostly, the rumors are spread by corporations because we're going to force them to spend billions of dollars in order to comply. And if you force people to do something like that and they bought a lot of money, they're going to do everything they can to stop it. Anyway, let's move on to Michael now.
Okay, there isn't so much here, but a big picture. If we want to reduce polarization, I would see it as a three-step process. First is find common humanity. That is to connect people personally, to develop this empathy, to help them understand that they are not enemies. And this is what Braver Angels is the main focus is, that to do this thing. Then the next step is that after you overcome this emotional animosity to each other, try to find common ground on some political issues. Braver Angels is doing some of this, not very efficiently in my opinion, but anyway, what I found is that actually after the first step, finding common ground is easy. And often I notice that reds and blues may have so much in common that I just forget who is who. They seem to think in the same way as long as they agree to talk to each other and be sincere. And the last step, which is almost entirely missing, is from common ground to common action. And this is to bring this common ground to our policymakers. And in my opinion, this is important because much of this polarization, besides social media, it's coming from our political system, from our political parties that benefit from this strong partisan sentiments. And they don't hear much from us like radical middle, like what Carl described. describes himself. There are many people like us in the middle, but our politicians don't hear from much, and they have to hear from us that we want them to work in bipartisan or cross-partisan way.
Okay, Michael, let's give others a chance. Okay. Zem.
Yeah, you said give a story. I'll give you a nice story. I was working as a poll worker this November, and an older Russian lady comes up to me and starts asking me questions about like how to vote, and we immediately bond. Like she immediately starts laughing about the secrecy sleeve, which I also find funny. It's like the box with Schrodinger's cat in it. If you close it really tight, does it become not, indeterministic, where you vote both for Trump and Harris at the same time? But anyway, we felt really good, and I started helping her out. She pulled out her cell phone, and it became apparent that her political persuasions were different from mine. She voted for somebody other than I voted for, right? And yet we had a very nice conversation. In the end, I say "das vidanya" in Russian. She tried to return the favor in Polish, and she couldn't. So my point is, to have a discussion with someone, you have to like them. Okay. So here I liked someone who had a different point of view. And also, don't forget, I'm Polish and she's Russian. By default, these two don't mix, right? If you pick a random Russian or random Polish people off the street, usually, camaraderie would not ensue. And yet it did, because I liked her. Not because I like the Russian people, I like her. And when people say don't talk politics or religion at the dinner table, you know why they say it, in my opinion? Because families hate each other. Families are dysfunctional entities, I have more to say, but yeah, I see Jim.
Yeah, I can understand. Okay, we know that. So we're going to go local to the room here. Tom has something to say.
Well, I really like what Michael has to say about braver angels. I find that conservatives really have a strong belief in patriotism and in what the founding fathers have to say. And they're also very often Christians. And so an idea that's important, a principle of reality that's important for them is unity, bringing people together. And so I remind them that on the Great Seal is written e pluribus unum, out of many one, and that we are the United States of America, and that truth can be found anywhere, not just in one place, but there's this interconnection that we all have. And so it's so important to find some kind of common ground, because that makes the person less defensive immediately. When you find something in common, you say, hey, crime is a serious problem. We have to find a way to address that. So I think that's what's really important.
Excellent. Okay, let's see. It would be, I guess it's Jim again.
I think it's very difficult to avoid polarization when there are organizations with plenty of funding deliberately setting out to polarize the nation in order to retain or gain power. And I think a lot of this is due to the fact that they can establish false realities with lies, which were very widely believed. And I think that very largely accounts for the outcome of the recent elections, because this propagandizing has been going on for years through multiple sources and is very well organized. And I don't see how we can avoid a lot of this polarization as long as this sort of condition is maintained.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to quote again. I often make this comment and I heard it from a conservative, Milton Friedman, and he said, remember that on any issue, almost everyone is close to 50-50. In other words, if you took a poll on any issue, it's very close to 50-50, no matter what the issue is. May be hard to believe, but that's what the group believes generally. And so all you have to do is change the mind of a very tiny fraction of the people to have an election because it's winner take all, first past the post in the United States. Maybe we should have better methods, but we don't. It's the one we have now. If you change the minds of just a few people, it'll change the outcome. And so approaching it that way and going after focusing on independence, which as I understand now outnumber both Republicans and Democrats at the present time. They're the ones that are going to make these differences. Okay, so let's see. I guess it's Sandra's turn.
Okay, so I'm pretty pessimistic about doing much about polarization because I think at the root of the problem lies short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. So if you look at COVID, people who didn't want to wear masks or didn't want to have the vaccine, I think were very short-sighted. Whereas any who knew anything about pandemics or was worried about how long things would go on, they were the ones more likely to take immediate measures. Also, with climate change, people will say, well, no, it's not really getting warmer. You know, you think about weather rather than climate. They're not looking about next year. They're not even looking at statistics because they don't trust science in the first place. So they're not willing to think long term. They just say, I'm okay today. And even explain away things like the forest fires, the wildfires in LA is, well, that's just a one-off instead of thinking it has anything to do with the long term. I'm through.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we're off to Jerry again. By the way, let's have some other folks, if they wish, join in. You know, we seem to be having a conversation between about 3 people, so maybe 4. Okay, Jerry?
I want to disagree with your statement about things being 50-50. There are certain issues where the Democrats and Republicans agree on something, but the Greens and Libertarians disagree with the Democrats and Republicans. I'm done.
Oh, I understand that, but the thing is that group better vote 100% because they're such a small fraction. But they could make things change if they vote, you know, one particular way or another. And I believe that that's why the Democrats a lot of times were always being accused of shifting ideas or beliefs because they'd focus on some of these issues. Okay.
Can I make a comment about
sure.
The conversations? The trouble is, to a large extent, is we don't really meet people who disagree with us strongly. We have our friends. We live in this area, which means we probably read the Mercury, and all the internet media is pretty much geared to give us what we want to hear because they get money on clicks and eyeballs, and so it's really hard to see communicating with the other side as having a big effect.
Yeah, I agree to you. In order for me to find persons of the other persuasion, I had to go to my relatives because they're the only people that are, you know, and they don't want to talk about politics at the dinner table or whatever at Thanksgiving, and that's really unfortunate because you don't get the other point of view. I'll just point out a story I've told many times. My brother-in-law characterizes himself as to the right of Attila the Hun. He's really a right-winger. But when I asked him on one particular issue, which had to do with healthcare, you know, which is the new healthcare, he owns a business. And if you have more than 35 employees, you have to provide a healthcare for them. Well, the problem is that his business is not as big as many of the other ones are, even though his business is large. It doesn't have thousands of employees, it only has hundreds. And as a result, these other people can spread those costs of administering these health plans over a much larger number of people. Therefore, they can underbid him on every job. And therefore, they're driving him out of business. He's pissed off because of that issue more strongly than anything else. Nothing will change his mind about that issue, which is healthcare, which, of course, many progressives believe should be free to all. So, okay, should we go to Michael?
Put my hand up.
Yeah, so when we think about almost any issue, and we find that it's not that easy to define who is right and who is wrong. So take this climate change, for instance, and I am not a climate change denier, of course. I'm very concerned about this issue. But I understand why people could question something of this, why people could have different opinions, because it's a big topic. I don't have time to discuss this, but there are some reasons, like disagreement between different climate models, between short and long terms, and so on. Take the issue of COVID, it's the same thing. It's not right to say that people who were against social isolation were necessarily wrong. But the thing is that in order to achieve anything at all, a society, we still have to agree at least on something, right? And the only way to develop this agreement is to talk to each other. Communication is a key to this. So people have to listen to each other and have to work through these different arguments together. And we don't have this enough. That's to me a big problem. And social media that was supposed to serve this need to facilitate this communication, it rather go in an opposite direction. It like builds walls between people, creates these bubbles.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah.
All right, so I guess Zem's up next, huh? Is anybody else? No, I don't see anybody in the room.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're having a conversation about depolarization, and half the people here are giving stump speeches about why they are right and the other side is wrong, and they cannot understand why the other side is wrong, which I find funny because this sort of defeats the purpose. But the other thing I wanted to say is that common ground becomes its own orthodoxy. And I've been booted out of Braver Angels, basically hounded away. I was accused of being slanderous. I was accused of trolling because, of course, the Reds and the Blues got together and sang in peace and harmony, and thereby establishing their own common ground. And heaven forbid someone else come in and say something different that was agreed to. So, Michael, I have no love lost for Braver Angels. They're just idiots. They say, you speak fairly and without fear. That's their first commandment, right? They're nothing near that. They're basically a self-adoration society. It's maybe we shouldn't try talking if we disagree. Like Carl, you're Attila Han brother. I mean, why even why talk to him? Also, save jet fuel. Stay at home. Don't. Why people travel for Thanksgiving? I just don't understand. It's one of those American mysteries I'll never solve.
Well, because I want to understand their point of view and empathize with them. And unfortunately, you don't wish to do that. And that's okay. It's your choice. It's just that you add to the polarization, you don't subtract from it. Because you could have stayed inside Braver Angels, expressed your opinion, saying that you thought you weren't able to speak your truth and that you were surprised and saddened or whatever it was that was happening to you. But okay, let me I always want to let everybody know that we're going to have to flip off here about 12:20 because we're in the library and we have to get out of here by 12:30. It's a prompt ending, unfortunately. So Dana was here first, not here second. Dana, Jerry,
Hi.
or Dana?
Hi, Carl.
Hi.
I think I kind of disagree with the model of the idea of polarization. I think what we have in this country is fragmentation. Okay, we have all these special inner groups: Mexicans, Blacks, Asians, Cubans. I mean, I could go on and on. And so I don't really think the country is polarized. If there is any polarization in this country, I think it's due to a polarization of money and income and wealth. That's a real polarization, where I would agree with that, because that's what really gets people going, is if some person has huge amounts of money and a bunch of other people are starving or living very poorly. So that's kind of how I look at it. Fragmentation, but like financial polarization. Thank you.
Oh, it's an
And
interesting concept. I'm sorry.
And I wanted to say that I wanted to say amen to what Zem said. And I'm afraid that those people who just simply disagree with Zem may not really have understood what he said. I think he made a good point about being booted off. And I could certainly relate to that as a Green, because Democrats and Republicans don't listen to me. They're really poor at listening to me. So believe me, I mean, if you ever heard my experiences trying to communicate with people over time, you might have a slightly different point of view. And I got to shut up.
That's why we allow people to express themselves. Okay, locally here, Tom is going to want to say something. Do you want to focus on it? Oh, yeah. Okay.
What did you think of? Just one quick thing about Braver Angels. I think that it's a great organization, and with the right idea. The problem that I see is that the people that join Braver Angels, that attend the meetings, already are looking for resolution. These are the wrong people that need to be hearing what Braver Angels is dealing with. And this is why I don't participate in that, because it's like just preaching to the choir. But when I have a lot of Trump supporting friends, and I have a lot of liberal friends too. And when I approach conversations with either side, I think that the motivation that we have to have in entering a lot of these difficult conversations is that we want to seek agreement. We want to seek resolution. I think that unity and reconciliation, bringing people together, is really the goal that we should have. And we have to get over this idea of us versus them thinking. The binary thinking is so destructive